It's 2016. A young man finds himself in an unpleasant situation at a local park in Tokyo. He's standing over the lifeless body of his pet Medica, and consumed with overwhelming sorrow, he gives his fish one more serious look as ants gently steal it from him. But at that very moment, he decided to eat it. That man was Tatsuki Fujimoto. Tatsuki Fujimoto is the hottest name in the manga industry. Because of his eccentric personality, he's created this anti-culture to the rest of the manga world, leading him to be a name people can't get out of their mouths.
Tatsuki Fujimoto.
Tatsuki Fujimoto.
Tatsuki Fujimoto. Fujimoto Tatsuki.
If you think about your favorite artist in any creative field, I'm pretty positive you don't know weird facts about their personal lives that no one should know. For example, you don't know if Michael Jackson has eaten a dead fish off the ground, but you now know Fujimoto has. You don't know if Van Gogh openly talked about killing people in interviews, but now you know Fujimoto has. You don't know if Leonardo DiCaprio has created this fake persona on Twitter, but you now know Fujimoto has. As far as I know, no other author has this many weird facts about them, while simultaneously creating what some would describe as a masterpiece. Because surely, if you were that strange of a person, you'd be incapable of creating captivating stories for millions worldwide. But Fujimoto has captured his eccentric mind to use it as a strength, while on his way to being one of the greatest manga authors of all time. So why is Tatsuki Fujimoto so weird? Okay, let me first preface by saying that there may be no definitive answer as to why Tatsuki Fujimoto is the way that he is, but we're still going to try to understand everything that there is to know about him. So before understanding why Fujimoto ate his fish, we need to get to know who Tatsuki Fujimoto is. What you're looking at is the entire timeline of Tatsuki Fujimoto's life. So we must start at the very beginning. Fujimoto was born on October 10th, 1992, while growing up in Nikaho City in Akita Prefecture, which can only be described as a very rural area. At a first glance, it possesses an ethereal beauty with the color green stretching as far as the eye can see. But Tatsuki Fujimoto points out one massive flaw in his hometown. Everything in Nikaho City, although seemingly natural, is completely unnatural. Human planted trees, rice paddies, and artificially created rivers means there's an ambiguity between nature and non-nature. And this is what Fujimoto calls as he reflects on his hometown, ultimately coming away with one monumental takeaway, that being, it's okay for the boundaries to be vague. Growing up, Fujimoto was viewed as one of those kids. He seemed a bit off to everyone around him, and being ostracized from a young age is a first-class ticket to social obscurity. A scary path Fujimoto was certainly heading down. Even looking back at his younger self, he was sure that he would never be able to have a quote-unquote normal job, as everyone around him feared for his future. For example, in junior high, Fujimoto had woken up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, only to find his family holding a secret meeting saying, Tatsuki is going to become a NEET if we don't look after him. NEET is the popularized Japanese equivalent of being a basement dweller. In other words, a NEET is someone who isn't studying, doesn't have a job, and isn't learning a craft. They're self-chosen lazy bums who leech off others. Despite only being in junior high at the time, his limited potential was jarringly evident. He showed zero interest in education, barely focusing while in school. Fearing this bleak future many expected of him, Fujimoto had no choice but to double down and commit to the only avenue that granted him any joy. And he would refuse failure as an option. Fujimoto drew a lot when he was younger, but lacked that natural, raw talent. He enjoyed the expressive creative process that allowed his imagination to come to life. However, he wasn't someone who got frequent praise for his technical ability. Frankly, his drawings didn't look real. His drawings didn't stand out. His drawings weren't even good. Back then, what he drew were glorified scribbles. So how does someone with no innate talent eventually become a star? Well, by creating scenarios no one else would consider. With an absence of art prep schools in the Akita prefecture, Fujimoto was forced to find other ways for formal artistic training. Thus, he opted to attend an elderly art class, and eventually he noticed how talented the people in the class were, and knowing where he wanted his art levels to be, he made a vow to himself.
I'll either be better than everyone here in 4 years, or I'll kill them all.
4 years passed and none of Fujimoto's classmates were harmed in this video, so his art reached a necessary level of satisfaction. But Fujimoto's art has never reached the pinnacle of the medium, and he'd even go on to state this in an interview.
When I see a good artist, it makes me think that they must be cheating somehow, like they got to redo their life or something, or else it just wouldn't be possible to achieve that level of skill.
Fujimoto lacked that jaw-dropping talent others had, so he needed other ways to revolutionize the game, and he would stumble upon his love for creating stories. Nothing was more enjoyable to a young Fujimoto than to create these endlessly vast narrative worlds, all in the comfort of his mind. When Fujimoto was in junior high, he imagined his very own magazine, where he produced 7 homebrewed series that simultaneously continued along each other, all with their own unique plots, titles, and characters, even going as far as to cut series that would underperform in his own thoughts, while then replacing them with entirely new stories. Naturally, some would conclude, where he stated that one time he was so moved by his fake series ending that it almost brought him to tears on the middle of class. This aberrant imagination would turn out to be a gift that would later be unwrapped, as in his junior high days, Fujimoto hadn't even committed to the thought of being a mangaka. But remembering the fears of becoming a N.E.E.T, Fujimoto latched onto a single aspiration, that no matter what, he was gonna do something creative. And from that point on, Fujimoto clung to his defining characteristic, honing the interesting, unparalleled ideas that flooded his mind. His unique approach to storytelling quickly bolstered a name for himself that caught the eyes of prominent figures at an early age of 17. But before moving on to Fujimoto's manga career, let's start a Fujimoto Weirdness Index, keeping in mind every anomalous behavior of the enigma that is Tatsuki Fujimoto. So here's a list of all of the odd things that we've learned about him. So how does one become a professional mangaka? Well, there are various pathways to reaching manga stardom, but it's typically done by first entering manga competitions. These are held in various manga magazines, such as the Holy Grail Weekly Shonen Jump. Shonen Jump is widely known for producing a lot of the most popular manga and anime, as they possess slightly formulaic attributes, tropes, and plot structures. And because of the distinctly defined pattern found in many of these stories, it's carved out its very own genre. But to be serialized in a place like Shonen Jump, mangaka need to submit one-shots to various competitions. See, manga are generally long-running series, spanning anywhere from tens of chapters all the way to thousands, while one-shot manga are slightly different. They're standalone self-contained stories that can be anywhere from 20 to 200 pages. But in these competitions, they're around the 35-page mark. So winning is the easiest path to becoming a professional manga artist. The editorial staff will comb through the submissions in hopes of finding promising young talent, where new editors who haven't quite yet partnered with individual authors can have their pick of the litter. but any finalist for these awards has a shot at being reached out to. From there, artists will continually enter and release one-shots in hopes of building a good enough resume. And after gaining some more pedigree, authors and the respective editors pitch long-running series to these magazines, hoping to get accepted for publication. For example, Eiichiro Oda would go on to submit his first one-shot Wanted, and upon receiving several awards, moved up to becoming a manga assistant. Not long after, he submitted another one-shot, Romance Dawn, which would go on to be the first iteration and inspiration for what would become the most sold manga ever, One Piece. On December 4th, 2011, Tatsuki Fujimoto entered his first manga competition, submitting his first one-shot titled A Couple of Clucking Chickens Were Still Kickin' in the Schoolyard. As one could expect of a first work, it was unpolished, had rough artwork, and sporadically jumps from different perspectives, stemming from his approach of 0 days of planning and 3 months of inking. Yet, Fujimoto's incredible ideas and themes were truly gripping, leading him to become a finalist for the award. A Couple of Clucking Chickens Were Still Kickin' in the Schoolyard explores what if humans were the ones being hunted, in a post-apocalyptic world where aliens have invaded Earth as they thirst for tasty human flesh. Yet despite being unrefined in every professional manga sense, at the young age of 17, Fujimoto would see immediate success. Despite not winning the competition, Fujimoto had won something much more valuable, that being a favorable impression to a board of editors. And he caught the attention of one special person, Rin Chiei. Fascinated by the aggressive, unreserved content of Fujimoto's manga, out of all of the finalists, he chose to reach out and work directly with Fujimoto. But being 17 years old means he's at a pivotal stage in his life, needing to decide what to do in his post-high school career. But at this point, Fujimoto had already committed to moving on to higher education, opting to attend Tohoku University of Art and Design in Yamagata. Despite this, his newly found editor, Rin, would create a plan with Fujimoto, allowing him to work on manga while also attending university. Rin proposed that Fujimoto should aim to make his debut, having your manga officially published, in the next 2 years. And upon hearing this, Fujimoto made another vow that if he didn't make his debut before graduating in 2014, he decided to die. Following the year in 2012, Fujimoto wouldn't publish or submit a single new manga. So, what did Fujimoto do for an entire year? In 2013, Fujimoto wouldn't hold back, submitting 4 different one-shots. And to put into perspective how insane that number is, let's consider a currently successful mangaka, Gege Akutami, the creator of Jujutsu Kaisen. It took Akutami 4 years to release 4 different one-shots, while Fujimoto was able to match the quantity in just a single year. Now, 2 of those one-shots he wrote in 2013 have never been officially released to the public, those being Sense of Justice and Paper Planes, with Paper Planes being an award winner. However, the next one-shot he submitted is a personal favorite for me, as well as Fujimoto, titled Sasaki Stop a Bullet, and it's quite possibly one of the strangest stories you'll ever read.
That's right, Kawaguchi-sensei is God. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. I would think about Kawaguchi-sensei before I go to sleep. She appears frequently in my dreams as well. Kawaguchi-sensei must be God. Nobody else is able to do these extraordinarily things other than God.
Now, to not give too much away, I implore everyone to go check it out, as I don't want to spoil what this gem has to offer. You won't fully comprehend the weirdness of the story without reading it yourself, because it's stupid, makes 0 sense, but I still absolutely love it. And with that being said, Sasaki Stopped a Bullet won Fujimoto his 2nd award. The final piece that Fujimoto would submit in 2013 is titled Love is Blind, and it's a piece that encapsulates the sense of humor that Fujimoto has. And the whole premise is that this guy wants to confess to his crush, but everything gets in his way. Love is Blind was able to take home an honorable mention award, while also being the first of Fujimoto's works to get published in Jump SQ as of April 19, 2014, meaning he declared his official debut. Overall, 2013 was a breakout year for Fujimoto, as he was able to take home 2 awards and 1 honorable mention. You'd think that long publication would be on the horizon for a multi-medal awarded up-and-coming artist, but it would take much longer than expected. Fujimoto would publish 2 new manga in 2014, both of which are on the tamer side of his oddness. The first is titled Shikaku, where a serial psychotic assassin girl meets an immortal vampire, where the vampire hopes that she can finally put an end to his life, but what he never expected was a bit of a wholesome twist. While his next one-shot is Fujimoto's attempt to make a quote-unquote normal story. The Jump SQ editorial staff laughed at the fact that Fujimoto was unable to write any normal stories. So, in response, Fujimoto published Mermaid Rhapsody. And in this world, mermaids exist, but instead of solely being these majestically beautiful creatures, they're feared by humanity. As if untamed, they'll show no regard in eating humans. But this boy here wishes to meet a mermaid, because his mother was one. And at the bottom of the ocean lies a piano, and due to his partial mermaid genetics, he dives into the depths playing the piano in hopes that his wish comes true. It's debatable to say that Fujimoto created a normal story. However, I'll just leave that decision up to you. And 2014 wasn't solely just a year for publishing one-shots. It's also the year Fujimoto would graduate in Western painting from Tohoku University, and following his graduation would move to Tokyo, staying in a bottom of the barrel apartment, hoping that he'll soon serialize his long-form manga. Yet, that day wouldn't come in the following year. So in 2015, Fujimoto published his sole one-shot, N.E.E.T, The Prophecy, where the story revolves around this single prophecy.
It is said that a magic user with horns that pierce the womb will be born. That person will not have a human heart. She speaks in a cruel tongue, unable to be comprehended by others. In the end, this person will destroy the world.
As the title suggests, N.E.E.T would become this so-called prophecy, and she creates immense uproar and turmoil across the entire city. N.E.E.T the Prophecy is a chaotically gruesome story, while at the same time is quite endearing. The end of 2015 is what I declare as the first act of Fujimoto's professional career. It marked a turning point as he was capable of moving on to much bigger things, such as in 2016, when Fujimoto finally got serialized for long publication, with a series titled Fire Punch. Oh God. Oh God. We are not ready for that yet. I guess we'll just have to come back to it later. Before Fujimoto's next major title, he would go on to publish 2 more one-shots, and these cement him as one of the most bizarre mangaka ever. The first came out on April 24th, 2017, titled When I Woke Up I'd Become a Girl Disease, and that is the entire plot. This guy wakes up as a girl one day and just has to figure out how to deal with his new life. Then, after he finished the oddity that is Fire Punch on January 1st, 2018, Fujimoto kept that weird momentum going, creating Little Sister, Elder Sister. Published on May 2nd, 2018, Little Sister, Elder Sister is in fierce competition as the strangest of Fujimoto's works, because it's about 2 sisters who are quite artistically talented, but they did something a little peculiar. That being, they've painted each other naked. On December 3rd, 2018, Fujimoto would create his magnum opus, Chainsaw Man, and it's still going on to this day. Part 1 of the story concluded on December 14th, 2020, and Part 2 would be picked up shortly after on July 13th, 2022. During Fujimoto's time away from Chainsaw Man, he created 3 new one-shots: Look Back, Goodbye Airy, Just Listen to the Song. In July 2021, Look Back was published. It was immediately met with critical acclaim. The notoriety of Fujimoto's name is due in part to the wild success of Chainsaw Man, And on the first day of publication, Look Back accrued over 2.5 million reads in just the first day. Goodbye Eri would follow this up on April 11th, 2022, also met immense success, garnering over 2.2 million reads in just the first day. The striking improvement Fujimoto has made over his career is demonstrated in both of these one-shots, with Look Back being about aspiring mangaka, while Goodbye Eri is a manga that's quite literally a cinematic masterpiece. And I'm specifically being brief here, as these are must-read stories that I feel are best to go in 100% blind. So after this video, it's your obligation to go read them if you haven't already. In July 2022, Fujimoto wrote the story for a one-shot titled Just Listen to the Song, about not trying to find meaning in things that don't exist, how it's better to just appreciate a piece of media for what it is. Unlike the previous two, Just Listen to the Song wasn't as widely appreciated. Nonetheless, I think it's still a fantastic quick 20-page read. Following closely after, Chainsaw Man Part 2 would begin on July 13th and is still going on as of this recording. And with that marks the complete summary of Fujimoto's professional manga career. And we've still yet to answer the most important question. But before that, here's the newly updated Fujimoto Weirdness Index. April 18, 2016 was a monumental day for Fujimoto, as the inaugural chapter of his new abominable series, Fire Punch, would be released. Now, trying to explain what Fire Punch is to someone who's never read it is like trying to explain the plot of a dictionary. It is quite impossible to do. So I think the best way for all of us to get a general understanding of what it's about is to dive into the first chapter.
Those born with the ability to perform miracles are called the Blessed.
Lord, I don't care if I die. Just please save Luna. Give us your merciful flame.
It is because of a Blessed called the Ice Witch that the world is now enveloped in snow, starvation, and madness. The freezing masses yearn for fire.
Luna, get it in one swing!
Just relax, brother. Brother, you're looking pale. We should take a break.
I'm fine. We'll stop after 7 rounds today, okay? Now just keep chopping, Luna. Hello? Granny Ishima, we've brought you an arm.
Coming.
We drained it this time, so it should last a while. Hope you enjoy it.
Agni, Luna, as always, thank you for your sacrifice. I will be sure to treasure it as I eat it. If it weren't for the two of you, everyone would die of hunger. We truly appreciate it.
Is that the last of them?
All that's left is open Vanna. He's dead.
Oh man, Vanna. That makes 6 this month.
It's not your fault, brother. He was always against eating human flesh. There's nothing you could have done. Besides, it's all the Ice Witch's fault anyway. She's the one who froze the world and continues to take everyone away. Like she did with Mom and Dad. All done, brother. I made a really light soup using your arm muscles. There's even a little bit of potatoes in it.
What a treat! I knew it. The meat at the joints are the best.
You're delicious, brother. Brother, will you make a baby with me?
What? Idiot! Stupid head, why would you even... we're siblings!
But we're the only young people in the village.
Stop!
We have to give it our all. Besides, I love you, brother.
Idiot! We're siblings! I can't believe there's still deer around. Everyone will be thrilled.
Come on, hurry it up. Damn it. Nothing but old fuckers.
Hey, you there! Why are you here?
There's a young man here too. How rare. My name is Doma. What's yours?
I'm Agni now. Why are you here?
No need to glare. We didn't come to fight. There's a war not far from here, and we've exhausted our supplies. Since we came upon your village, we'll be taking your rations and fuel.
We don't have enough to share. Just get out of here and let me go, you jerk.
Doma, sir, we have a situation. We found something during the search of the homes. There are body parts in every home. Human meat. These guys, they're eating people.
Cannibals?
It's not what you think. It's human meat, but
We're leaving. Pull out.
Pull out!
These things aren't people. Agni, is there a blessed one in this village?
Is he hoping to gain a slave? No?
Well, I'm one. And I only use my power for the king. That's right. If the king were here, he wouldn't allow a village of cannibals to go unchecked.
It was an indescribable pain. Each time my flesh turned to ash, my regeneration would kick in. It was an endless cycle. I couldn't think straight and no longer had it in me to scream. All I could do was pray to God to protect Luna from those flames, to allow her to survive safe and sound. That heat, that pain, that vomiting, that smell of burning sickened flesh. I couldn't take it. I cursed my blessing, my regenerative powers, and then I realized by focusing my mind on negating the regeneration of my arm, it would die and no longer regenerate. I had found a way to escape the pain. If I just died, consumed by pain, it was all I could think of. I would die. I would let my life go.
Brother.
Nah. Luna was so close to being fully consumed. After all, her regenerative powers were weaker than mine. She told me to live. Consumed in flames of anguish, she was returned to ash. Year 1. All I did was howl in pain. Even through the worst of the storms, the flames never subsided. Year 3. I began to walk, coughing up blood all the while. To distract myself from the pain, I bit my tongue off time and time again. Year 5. My brain acclimated to the pain. My body could move about freely, but I still could not breathe well. Year 8. I started teaching myself how to control my regenerative powers. I succeed in confining my flames to my lower body, away from my head. For the first time in a long while, I can breathe air.
Hey,
What'll happen to the slaves in the back?
We'll sell the pretty ones to the rich. The ugly will breed until they're dead. The men work until they die. They're lucky they get to be slaves in Behendorg. Anywhere else then they'd freeze or starve.
Hey, I gotta piss. Pull over.
You got it, Captain.
I'll make it quick. 10 seconds tops. There's a lot of pretty ones this time. Put the redhead in my cab. Gather the old and kill 'em. Cover the kids with blankets. The king is gathering the blessed. If you're blessed, raise your hand. You're guaranteed good treatment. What are you looking at? I hate people who don't know their place. Kill that kid. Why aren't you shooting?
There's something walking this way. It's a blessed. He looks warm.
I hate being interrupted. I'll kill him. 10 seconds flat.
Fire Punch is fucking weird. Like, this happened in the first chapter. This happened in the first chapter. This happened in the first chapter. And this happened in the first chapter. And that is just the first goddamn chapter. It only gets stranger from here. So maybe you can understand what I mean when I just can't summarize the plot of Fire Punch. Not only because it's weird, but also because the plot does a somersault every third volume. So, Fire Punch is really weird, huh? This is my segues to get back to some more serious stuff. Fujimoto has no regard for what is seen as socially acceptable. He isn't afraid to depict the most gruesome, absurdly odd things, such as this, or this, and even this. Also, let me remind you that in order for you to create something this weird, your mind has to first think of that weird thing. And this makes you question how Fire Punch was ever approved for serialization in the first place. Well, it actually took 2 rejections from Jump Square before Fujimoto got to tell this story in Shonen Jump Plus. As I mentioned earlier, Shonen Jump is the holy grail of manga magazines, with its desired target audience of male teens. This means that Weekly Shonen Jump strays away from depicting more adult themes, as it prioritizes the depictions of achieving goals, growth, and the values of friendship. But because Fujimoto didn't find himself in Weekly Shonen Jump, but in Shonen Jump Plus, he made sure to create a story that would never be allowed in Weekly Shonen Jump. So he included ideas about religion, slavery, rape, torture, bestiality, cannibalism, and incest. It seems ludicrous that anyone would be drawn to this vulgar story. It explores taboos, it has twists and turns at every corner, and you never know what to expect while reading. And whenever you think you know what's gonna happen next, you're wrong. And I think this quote perfectly sums up your expectations while reading.
Every time you think Agni's gonna take 1 step forward, he takes 2 steps left and levitates up.
Fire Punch is quite literally in direct opposition to Weekly Shonen Jump. There is little to nothing formulaic about it. So I gotta ask, why would anyone resonate with this story? Well, Fire Punch is the antithesis of Weekly Shonen Jump, but it's also the antithesis of manga in general. The ideas explored in Fire Punch are ones that you'll rarely find in any manga. I mean, sure, you may find some aspects of slavery in your shitty typical isekai, but it's not depicted to the same grotesque effect in Fire Punch. I mean, sure, there is technically slavery in a series like One Piece, but do you find this in One Piece? The aspects that separates the topics explored in Fire Punch that's also brushed up in other manga is the level of vile realism. Furthermore, it's not just the faithfulness of the depictions, but also the stupid amount quantity. Fire Punch is quite literally a walking trigger warning. You just don't typically find this in any manga, especially ones with an ounce of popularity, which is why Fire Punch took the internet by storm in 2016. Tatsuki Fujimoto is beyond odd, but it's not revolutionary to state that. So what is the value of being a strange author? It's not like him being weird means his work gets 10 times better, so let's first answer why Fujimoto reached the pinnacle of manga authors. To do so, I have to ask, why are his works so different? And first, let's talk about inspiration. You can find it anywhere. We have access to an infinite well of never-ending creative endeavors. With Fujimoto having only just reached his 30s, he's in a different position relative to other great mangaka, because he's had the privilege of being one of the first generations to grow up during the internet era, allowing Fujimoto to dive into a treasure trove of endless content. But to answer why Fujimoto's works are so different, we first have to understand why many shonen feel so similar. There's a common trend among shonen mangaka when referring to what inspired their stories. For example, Eiichiro Oda was inspired by Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball, same for Masashi Kishimoto, as well as drawing from Togashi's Hunter x Hunter, while newer names like Gege Akutami have been inspired by Togashi's Hunter x Hunter and Tite Kubo's Bleach. So what's the common factor amongst all of their inspiration? Well, shonen manga authors countlessly exclaim their inspiration from previous shonen stories. And firstly, I'm not trying to say that it's bad to draw inspiration from what has succeeded and impacted you as a viewer, as it certainly has provided a successful framework for many shonen titles to follow. But ironically enough, that's where the problem lies. This manga-inspired innovation only creates a continuous positive feedback loop. As you can see, authors draw inspiration from series that came before them, but that also means they create stories similar to that previous generation, creating this never-ending loop of titles that all feel a little bit stale. That isn't to say I don't absolutely love them, but there's a lack of innovation in the genre. I bring this all up to say that inspiration is where Fujimoto differs, allowing him to create stories so vastly different from his peers. For example, Fujimoto quite literally states that the character of Power in Chainsaw Man is inspired by Eric Cartman, while Denji and Pochita's dynamic relationship is inspired by Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. Personally, I've never seen manga authors draw as much inspiration from Western media as Fujimoto does. Moreover, in all of the research I've done, and hey, maybe I'm wrong, but Fujimoto has only mentioned a single classic shonen, One Piece, and not even to say that he was inspired by it, but when he was younger, he did in fact watch it. Instead, what Fujimoto pulls from are films. A little more specifically is his obsession with Korean films. They're often praised for their high-quality, freshly unique experience they bring to the cinema industry, with their distinct approach as well as expectation-defying stories. So when Fujimoto draws from many of these different films, of course his works are also going to feel contradictory, because they're inspired by the same basis that redefines the expectations of both of their respective mediums. Needless to say that Fujimoto draws from any work that he's fond of, and by doing so, Fujimoto breaks free from the perpetual cycle of manga-inspired shonen stories. Instead, Fujimoto's inspiration is more like a rapidly growing web, a web that keeps branching out further and further the more he consumes. And because Fujimoto takes inspiration from a vastly different perspective from the rest of the manga world, it allows him to be unique to the point of extreme, leading him to create some very odd stuff. Alright, we've explored Fujimoto's works, got a glimpse into his oddness, and even discussed why his works feel so weird. But how else is he able to succeed? I think the perfect series to answer that question is Chainsaw Man. But more specifically, I should ask, how is a series where the main character seeks to touch a woman able to affect so many people? If you think about new coming adults in today's day and age, we often don't have these same hardworking aspirations previous generations had. For example, we aren't eager to go buy a house a couple years after graduating college, simply because that is no longer a feasible option. Instead, this generation is content with just doing our job and going home to do whatever the fuck we actually want to do. Oddly enough, this is also reflected in the aspirations of shonen manga. Previous generations of shonen stories frequently had these massively aspiring protagonists, which reflected the high-achieving culture of those times. But now we don't have those aspirations. We don't have that connection to massive goals. That's why whenever newer series try to replicate these lofty expectations, it can fall a little flat. Instead, we aspire for something much simpler, like Denji's straightforward goal of embracing a woman. I'd be remiss to say that Fujimoto is head and shoulders above the rest just by creating a relatable story through its realistic cast of characters. While it is a fundamental aspect, in many ways, Fujimoto has been revolutionizing the manga medium. Many would say that manga can't hold a candle to its counterpart, anime, saying that drawings have no chance of being as good as moving images with voice acting and music. Although there is some truth in that statement, there are things that Fujimoto does with manga that could never be done on a screen. Page layouts and panel formations have been a strength of Fujimoto's as early as when he was creating Fire Punch, not sticking to any one particular structure that becomes monotonous when reading. Instead, he uses varying miniature panels to help guide the reader's eyes to the bigger picture of a page. Likewise, Fujimoto toys with the perception and confines of the manga medium, such as a panel like this, where the finger looks like it's coming from an outside entity into the manga panel. Or here's another one. The perspective looking in through the window, although it could be replicated in anime, it wouldn't have the same wowing effect it does in the manga, as in an anime it would just seem as any other shot. While seeing this done in manga truly shows the artistic expertise of Fujimoto. Tatsuki Fujimoto is simply a standout author. Anything he does, creates, or says, people become infatuated with, all because of his astounding, self-aware, relatable, unhinged stories derived from unique inspirations. People would simply line up for days just to get a glimpse into the genius of Tatsuki Fujimoto. And honestly, he's kind of become this cult-like leader, signaling to the tippity-top status that he's created for himself. And one may even say that he's the current best. Now, there's still one more thing we have to uncover. Remember the year 2012? The year after Fujimoto released his first one-shot and didn't do anything? Well, that was a fucking lie.
There was a website where amateurs could submit manga, and I started uploading my scribble-like manga there in my first or second year of high school.
There's a fascinating undiscovered online presence of the great Fujimoto, which all stems from a lone username. And rumblings on Twitter suggest that Tatsuki Fujimoto used to go under another alias. Nagato is me. But how can we figure if that's actually true? I won't pretend like I'm some super internet detective that prove the existence that Nagato is me is truly Fujimoto. And we'll never 100% know unless there's a confirmation directly from Fujimoto himself. However, this fabulous video by Fukuro Fetus presents pretty damning evidence to suggest that Nagato is me is in fact Fujimoto. But the most convincing evidence actually comes from Twitter, where multiple users mentioned a Twitter handle called Nagato is me. However, that account no longer exists. And those same people who mentioned the Nagato is me account are also followed by Fujimoto's current Twitter, including Sui Ishida, the author of Tokyo Ghoul. So it would be an outlandish coincidence that each of these users who mentioned the account are also followed by Fujimoto's new Twitter, meaning it's quite likely that this is a username Fujimoto has used. But again, what can we gain from knowing this? Well, to start off, seemingly everything I found that connects to Nagato is me was published in either 2011 or 2012, giving some explanation to what he was doing during the empty period of 2012. And as you can see by the scribble-like artwork, it's clear that Fujimoto has put countless hours on improving his craft, and it truly shows in the quality of his various works. However, that isn't all that weird, so let me inform you that there's more to Fujimoto's internet reign. Just a second ago, I mentioned Fujimoto's current Twitter. If you haven't heard of it, well, it's much more infamous than you could ever imagine. And to tell the tale of this account, let's go back to a time before Fire Punch was released. Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario, one where you're about to publish your very first long manga, and overwhelming excitement fills throughout your entire body. Therefore, you make your way over to the internet to make sure no information had leaked out. But what you found was beyond shocking. It was genuinely terrifying. Not only was it a leak, but something potentially life-threatening. This person in the hypothetical scenario was actually Rin Shiehi, and in astonishment, quickly reached out to Fujimoto, where I imagine the conversation went something like this. Fujimoto, we have a massive problem. I can't believe this, it's so scary.
What happened?
Online, I found this psychopath who somehow leaked information about Fire Punch.
Huh? Really? Who could have done it?
I don't know, maybe an editor or an assistant mentioned it to someone, but seriously, it's quite frightening. I think we should get a lawyer.
A lawyer? What? What happened? Explain it from the top.
Okay. So I was doing some checks online to make sure no information had leaked out, but I found something really scary. On Twitter, this account it's crazy. I think something may be wrong with this person. Like, only an absolute psycho would try to pose as your little sister and leak information about your upcoming series. At first I was just nervous that it was a leak, but I looked further into the account and they are seriously committed to pretending to be your little sister, even going as far as to mention you sometimes. I know you don't have a little sister, especially one named Nagayama Koharu, so this is really freaky. I'm going to try to sue them.
Rin, I don't think we need to sue. It's okay.
What do you mean it's okay? This is insane!
Well, you see, that's actually my account. I pretend to be a fake little sister. I tweet about what I eat, recommendations I have, and so on. I want to be anonymous online, so I've taken on a persona. And as I play the role, I've gradually become Nagayama Koharu. Sometimes I tweet about things that I've done or ate that aren't even true.
Fujimoto, you insane maniac. Well, maybe this is the proper way to be on Twitter. Nagayama Koharu is a persona Fujimoto created, staged to be his third grade little sister. But he doesn't have a sister. Despite his desperate attempts at trying to stay anonymous, it was a massive failure. At a first glance, the concept that Fujimoto pretends to be an imaginary little sister is utterly peculiar. It makes you wonder what kind of twisted psycho this man truly is. But now let's gather everything we've learned to tackle the ultimate question. Why is Tatsuki Fujimoto so weird? You'd think that this question was a shut and closed case. Just look at the abundant list of reasons for why Tatsuki Fujimoto is considered weird in the first place. There's also one more thing that needs to be added to the list that I couldn't fit narratively in the video. Maybe you've heard that Tatsuki Fujimoto is a masochist. Well, that's because in an interview he quite literally openly admits to it, going on to recall this story about getting pushed off his bike by some chick and then saying he felt so happy that she did it to him. Alright, take another look at this list. It's a no-brainer. Tatsuki Fujimoto is a fucking weirdo. He ate his pet fish, he pretends to be a girl that doesn't exist, he has openly admitted to at one point planning murder, as well as suicide, and he writes about the strangest fucking things. All the signs point to him not being mentally sane. So at the bottom line, let's all collectively agree that Tatsuki Fujimoto is a fucking weirdo. But allow me to explain why he isn't so weird. We're always all too quick to just read a headline, too quick to just read a title, too quick to just look at a thumbnail, and from that we gather improper assumptions. Tatsuki Fujimoto is just as human as you or I. He has the same justifications, feelings, and fears that we all have, but he's viewed as this weird, bizarre entity. Like, you'll read or hear about how Tatsuki Fujimoto pretends to be his little sister on the internet. You'll hear echo after echo that he's a fucking weirdo. So how can you also not believe that same sentiment that everyone spews? But I think we all fail to consider the motives for his actions. For example, take Nagayama Koharu. On the surface, it appears as a predatory attempt to be someone he's not. But is it really that weird to want a sense of security? Or what's the reason behind his murderistic threats? To me, Fujimoto embodies that desperate desire to be great, possessing the same killer, animalistic attitude legends like Kobe, MJ, and Larry Bird had for the game of basketball. Fujimoto was never going to fail at becoming a mangaka, so he created ultimatums to guarantee his success. When I read Fujimoto was either going to get better at art or kill his classmates, at first I laughed, but the more I read, the more I didn't think he was that weird. Instead, I kind of admired. I admired the unfaltering passion to be great. I think there's logical reasons as to why Fujimoto does the odd things that he does. Well, okay, maybe there's no explanation for eating your pet fish out of pity. And sure, maybe he is a little weird. He can say weird things and write about odd topics. But that's the charm of Fujimoto, and none of it is with ill intent. Again, there may be no definitive answer as to why Fujimoto is as weird as he is, but there's certainly something we can learn from him. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're all fucking weird. Some more weird than others, but too often we all try to conform to society. We try to become another cog in the wheel, adding no value to our lives or anyone else's. We shy away from that weirdness that makes us who we are, and as a result, makes life lack the imaginative creativity that brings color to the world. So what I'm trying to say is aspire to achieve like Fujimoto, because he got to where he is by consistently rejecting normality. Maybe there will be a day where we reflect back and remember how Tatsuki Fujimoto rose to being the greatest mangaka of all time. Not because he did what already worked, but because he did what didn't, creating weird stories no one else dared to create. So make sure you follow Tatsuki Fujimoto, because there will never be another author quite like him.